All right, looks like just a hair after 9, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Jason Wright. I'm with Tetra Tech. I'll be moderating this session today. So I'd like to start by thanking our presenters. So as you heard from some of the speakers earlier this morning, this program or forum is organized and offered to share the views and experiences of the organizations who are presenting. You heard the disclaimer already, but essentially anything you hear today is not necessarily endorsed by the EPA or PADEP, and they do not endorse or any one particular approach or strategy. But again, I do like to thank the presenters here. We've organized this event to focus on the permittees' experience as they work to meet the conditions of the Pennsylvania MS4 permit. So all of our presenters have volunteered to share this information in hopes to serve as a learning opportunity for their fellow permittees and local decision makers. To also remind you now about the survey at the end, we'll be soliciting your feedback to make sure we can apply any of your feedback and thoughts to the next forum. So we appreciate you sharing those. So we're in the forum now for the minimum control measure number 5. Minimum control measure number 5 is post-construction runoff control. We're going to be hearing about one element of that, which is BMP mapping and tracking. So our presenters today are here to tell us a little bit more about their experiences. We have Latice Brown from the city of York and Jessica Fieldhouse, who is with CS Davidson, and they'll let them tell you a little bit more about themselves and about their experiences in mapping and tracking BMP implementation. So
Super.
Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, very much. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jessica Fieldhouse. Like Jason said, I'm with CS Davidson, and I'm here presenting with Latice Brown of the city of York. Latice, I'm not sure if you want to say hi. Make you speak? No. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I had to take myself off mute. Sorry. Good morning, everybody. Yep. We are going to tell you some information about MCM 5, some trials and tribulations that I have gone through as an MS4 permittee, and some tips and tricks as well.
Super. Thanks, Latice. So the other thing I'm doing is I have built in some audience participation into this presentation. So we'll walk through that. This is sort of I'm beta testing this with you guys, so I hope you don't mind being guinea pigs. And we'll have our contact information at the end of our presentation. So on with the guinea pig testing. For anybody joining us, if you have your smartphone or your computer, go ahead and use your camera on your device to scan the QR code, or you can enter menti.com. Either way, when you get to menti.com, go ahead and enter 4796-6411. And that should take you to this screen. Enter your code there. And I said that code was 4796-6411. Okay, and why don't we, I know that Latice and I are both from York County, but why don't everybody else go ahead and fill out the survey if you can, and let us know where you're from.
Yeah, Jessica, can you back up 1 second to that code? That was a little quicker than I could.
Oh, sorry about that. Yep, yeah. Sure. 4796-6411. And this should tell us, although now I can't get it to tell us what it's doing.
Can you get code one more time?
Sorry. Yeah, sure. Here, can everybody see the screen? It's menti.com, and the code is 4796-6411.
All right.
And let's see if I can switch to the presentation somehow. There we go. Now we're starting to see it. All right. All right. So we've got, looks like we've got some people from Cumberland, York, Franklin, and Adams. Nobody yet from Blair and Perry, and one from Center. All right. Super, guys. So I appreciate you working with that for us. So let's go back to the presentation here. All right, so our overview for today, I am going to go into some basics with MCM5 just to kind of set some foundation and groundwork. So we're also going to go into MCM5 implementation and some must-have sort of procedural steps that you need to have in your municipality to make sure that you're administering MCM5 appropriately. The next thing we're going to do is move on to a demonstration of sort of CSDATM and how CSDATM works within MCM5. We'll go through a background and a brief demonstration of the software as it relates to mapping and inspections for your BMPs. And then I'll switch it over to Latif, and Latif will tell us about implementing MCM5 in York City. So again, another audience participation moment. What I'm looking for is for folks to go back to Menti, and I'll open up this question. And I'm asking for you guys to tell me sort of in 3 words, if you think about your MS4 program or you think about MCM5, tell me what those top 3 words are that come to mind. Let's see. Is that working for people? No? All right, well, I won't belabor it. If it's not working, it's not working. Okay, so let's move on. So what is MS4? Just for anybody joining us who needs a little bit of a background, from a 10,000-foot view, MS4 is essentially a water pollution prevention and elimination program. And the way that MS4 is supposed to do this is through community outreach and education, through inspecting for pollution, and through establishing operation and maintenance procedures that will prevent pollution entering our waterways. This is specifically with regards to non-point source water pollution. I have a definition here. Essentially, non-point source pollution is anything that's not coming from one particular location, which is essentially our stormwater pollution and so on and so forth. So it's picked up from all over our urbanized area and carried into our waterways untreated. So a couple of guiding principles, and this relates to MCM5, but it also relates to the MS4 program in general. And this is what I tell a lot of my MS4 clients. These are the basics. So your written stormwater management plan. Each one of the MCMs in the guidelines requires a written plan. My thought process on this plan is that this is your operation manual. This is your guidebook. So your written plan is sort of, I always think of it this way, it's sort of a CYA for you, for DEP, and for EPA in preventing illicit discharges and water pollution. And when I say that, what I mean is if there are leadership changes at if we could have everybody. Thank you. So if there are leadership changes at the top of your organization, if you're experiencing a lot of employee turnover, one of the things that will undoubtedly fall to the wayside will be administration of your MS4. And so the reason that we're required to write a written plan is so that when there are new people entering the organization, these really important steps of reaching out to the community, of inspecting your outfalls and BMPs, and of creating processes to prevent pollution, those won't get dropped by the wayside. So the second thing to keep in mind is the PAG 13, which is the DEP's guidance for our MS4s. Keep this handy, everybody. Print it. If you don't have it printed, keep it on your desk. This is the instruction manual for the entire program and what your written stormwater management plan needs to be based on. Also very important, and I think this goes outside of MS4, but treat your MS4 plan as a living document. As you are administering your program, as you are going day to day, you're making changes, you're encountering situations, you want to keep that document up to date. And for this reason, I tell all of my clients to keep their stormwater management plan as a Word document so it can be routinely updated. You do not need something pretty and beautiful like this presentation. You just need something written down that captures your priorities and your processes. And the other thing I'd say about MS4 is you cannot discount a good faith effort. We're not all going to get this right, but if we are realistically trying and genuinely trying to meet the intent of the program, then we're going to be okay all around and we'll perfect these things as we go. All right, so the main attraction, MCM 5. Just real briefly on the BMPs. BMP 1 is enacting and implementing a stormwater management ordinance. BMP 2, encouraging and allowing low impact development procedures, or BMPs, for new development and redevelopment. And here's the big one for everybody, and why I'm sure everybody's here. BMP 3, ensuring adequate operation and maintenance of all post-construction stormwater management BMPs that have been installed for an acre or more disturbance since 2003. This is the tough part. I've had a lot of clients go, wait a second, what? How am I possibly going to do this? Well, we'll get into that. Again, realistic steps, good faith effort. So let's clear away the easy stuff first. So BMP 1, most of us in Pennsylvania, and it looks like there are sections, I checked with DEP's website yesterday, it looks like there are sections of some of the counties who are here that maybe are not covered under a countywide Act 167, but for the most part, everybody is. And that countywide Act 167 model ordinance is compliant with DEP's 2022 model ordinance, which all of our municipalities who are MS4s need to enact by the end of the permit cycle. So as long as we've got the countywide Act 167 model ordinance in place, then we are meeting BMP 1. If you have questions, I'll go back, I apologize. If you have questions, and it looked like to me, and again, I'll glob onto that disclaimer, check with the actual professionals on this, meaning DEP. If you have questions about where you stand with your ordinance, you can contact your regional advisor. Here is a website where you can find that information. So BMP 2, develop and implement measures to encourage and expand the use of low impact development in new development and redevelopment. So our existing templates absolutely do permit the use of low impact development. So we're meeting this BMP from that standpoint. What I see in the future happening is our municipalities working more towards encouraging low impact development practices. And really the way that we need to do that is by really going through our stormwater management regulations. And just like we do with basins, we provide criteria for rate reduction and volume reduction. We'll probably have to go back through and create the same criteria for things like stream bank restorations and floodplain restorations. So that way we're removing the barriers for using low impact development BMPs. We're removing the need for waivers. We're removing some of the uncertainty and encouraging this development. And again, for BMP 2, if anybody would like additional resources, I do have DEP's website with their approved MCM 5 resources here. And we can make this link to this presentation available. And Jason, I'm imagining Tetra Tech has a way to send this information out to everybody.
Yes, yeah, I believe Adriana will have resources available on the website after
Perfect.
the forum.
So we're gonna make sure Adriana has this link also. So here we are with BMP 3, and this is really the sticking point for all of us. So what we have to do with BMP 3 is ensure adequate O&M of all of our post-construction stormwater management BMPs installed since 2003. So if you're like a lot of communities, you're kind of looking at this saying, okay, fair enough. How do I create this list, or how do I expand on this list? So identification of BMPs is step number one. And just like with anything else in your life, baby steps is important. So what the BMP requires is that we identify the location, the owner and contact information, and then from that, we create a list of BMPs that we need to inspect on a regular basis. So my guidance to anybody here who's looking to expand on their list or needs to create their list, start with what you know. And what you know maybe from the last 6 months, it's fine. Identify the BMPs that you're aware of. And then next, expand on your circle. Start working with your public works department, your public works director, your township, and your municipal engineer, and anybody on your municipal planning commission to try and identify where BMPs may be located. The super important thing here, document, document, document. So in your Microsoft Word stormwater management plan that you update on a regular basis and you have in paper format at the front desk of your office for anybody from the public to come in and see, update that document to identify how you plan throughout the year to identify the BMPs that you need to identify and who you're going to be working with. And if it takes you more than a year, it takes you more than a year. As long as you're documenting and working on it, that's what you need to worry about. So now let's say that you have your list of BMPs identified. Now what we move to is inspecting them. And there's a little bit of a difference here. If you go into the PAG 13 where the MS4 guidance is, there's a difference between inspections for outfalls and inspections for BMPs. And that difference is in MCM 3, the guidance is very clear. We are to be inspecting our outfalls once every 5 years if you're an existing MS4 permittee. I believe if you're a new permittee, I can't remember if it's once every 5 years or twice in 5 years, but very clear on the guidance. However, with MCM 5, there's a lot more flexibility in MCM 5. And what I mean by that is you've got flexibility on who conducts the inspections. The PA BMP manual, chapter 6 of that manual is all on structural BMPs. And at the end of every section in that, for every structural BMP identified, is a maintenance section on the types of operation and maintenance that you should expect to see when you're going to inspect a private BMP. So given this knowledge, really anybody can conduct BMP inspections as long as they know what they're looking for. So you've got flexibility in terms of using a third party. You can use your boots on the ground staff, such as your public works employees, your inspection employees, and you can use a volunteers or a mix of one or the more. And when I say volunteers, you've got planning commission members, zoning hearing board members, elected officials that all live in your neighborhoods. If there is a BMP in one of their neighborhoods, ask them to go out and inspect it, looking for the operation and maintenance activities that are identified in the PA BMP manual, chapter 6. Additionally, you also have options in the frequency with which you conduct those inspections. And really what it comes down to is a justification, a realistic justification based on your capacity and resources. So typically when I'm helping a community write their stormwater management plan, after the sort of housekeeping definitions information, we usually include a page on the capacity and resources of the community because everybody's different. We work with some boroughs where their elected officials are also volunteering to help with public works. And they maybe have 4 BMPs in their small borough. Well, there's no reason not to inspect those BMPs annually using your volunteer staff. It's 4. However, you could be a community that's got 30 or more. Latice, how many BMPs do you have in New York City to inspect?
We have about 123.
Right. So realistically, it is not possible for 123 for you to ensure that those are being inspected on an annual basis. So what people do is usually an amalgamation of a couple of different things. So you certainly can't inspect everything every year. If that won't work because of capacity, you can utilize a self-certification form, which is the route that York City uses, and send that self-certification form to the property owners, have them send it back to you. You can set up a plan to perhaps inspect your BMPs once every 5 years, like the outfall process. Again, the important sticking point here is to make sure that you can justify your decision making in terms of how you're setting up your inspection processes and the frequency. And as long as you can do that realistically, and you can prove that with the inspection process that you've set up, you're meeting the intent, then you're safeguarding yourself on all fronts. So essentially, that's the flexibility, and I know that Letice will get more into those inspection options when she discusses how York City carries out their processes. So the next thing I want to turn to is these are the must-have procedures that you need to have in place, and furthermore, that you need to have documented in your written MCM5 plan. And these procedures ensure that you have the ability in the future to carry out your inspections. And again, Letice will talk more about this. So you want to make sure that you have internal procedures surrounding securing O&M agreements. You want to make sure that before you have plan approval, you have an O&M agreement for that BMP that has been reviewed and approved by your municipal engineer, solicitor, and then the elected officials. Secondly, you must have an internal process for recording the plans and recording the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement. And it is not uncommon for plans and agreements to sit at a municipal office waiting recording. I've lived in your shoes. I've been a municipal employee. Letice's too. We know that these things tend to sit. It's okay. They can be figured out, but they do need to be recorded as soon as is realistically possible. And the reason that is, especially for the agreements, if the agreement is recorded with the plan tied to the parcel ID, anytime a deed research is conducted or someone's purchasing a property, that operation and maintenance agreement will pop up as a requirement when they do the deed research. And this is important because we all know people forget what was done. And if it's under the ground, you especially forget. And this is just a really great check and balance to ensure that future property owners are aware of what's been placed on the ground and for what reason and what their responsibilities are. The final thing I'll say here on must-have procedures, you absolutely want to make sure that your financial guarantee includes the development of an as-built plan to capture any changes made in the field to your stormwater management system and includes funds for recording of the operation and maintenance agreement. And the reason that that's important is the next little bit on this slide is determining the difference between MCM4 versus MCM5 with regards to where your BMP is in the process. So if you're in construction, that BMP is still an MCM4, which is construction site stormwater runoff. And most importantly for you, that means then that the County Conservation District, partnering with your municipal engineer, are ensuring that all of those E&S practices are working and preventing erosion as they're supposed to be doing and limiting impact to your MS4. Why I say that the financial guarantee, including an as-built plan and a recording of the operation and maintenance agreement, is that is a really very clear defined step where a BMP moves from MCM4 to MCM5 and then becomes the purview and domain of whoever is responsible for inspecting BMPs. Once that BMP is removed from the financial guarantee, or once that BMP is signed off on by York County Conservation District and all of the E&S control measures have been removed, that BMP should then transfer to an MCM5 inspection item that you regularly inspect, whatever your process is that you've determined it to be. All right, so this audience participation is embedded into the survey. This should work much better. And this gets into something I wanted to talk about teamwork. So if everybody could answer the 4 questions that are here in the survey, and your answers should populate as you take the survey. And for anybody, this may not, I'll skip it because you guys all need to have the link pulled up. Again, beta testing, we have some work. I'll just skip this. All right, so the intent was with these questions, and you can see them here. So I'll read them off. So are you responsible for ensuring that operation and maintenance agreements are reviewed? What's wrong, Jason?
Could you put the link in the chat?
Yeah, actually, I can put the link in the chat.
Yeah, there's a few who are asking about the link again. I think maybe we just didn't have quite enough time to get it down. But yeah, if you could drop it in the chat, that might help.
I don't have the chat pulled up.
You should see an icon that says show conversation. It looks like a little bubble.
Yep. Oh, got it. Okay, here you go. All right, everybody, you should be able to link onto that and then go to slide 14 and take this questionnaire. And while that's happening, I will walk through these questions. So again, are you responsible for ensuring that the approved plan and operation and maintenance agreement are recorded at the County Recorder of Deeds office? Are you responsible for ensuring that the financial guarantee includes the provision of recording of the O&M agreement and as-built plans? And finally, are you involved in the construction process to a degree in which you are aware of field changes to the stormwater management systems, materials, and designs? If you answered no to any one of those 4 questions, it means that this is a team lift activity. And the MS4 program is really a team lift activity. And one of the very best good housekeeping MS4 administration tasks that I could give you would be to schedule a quarterly MS4 meeting with the other counterparts at your municipality to coordinate what everybody's responsibility is. And I'll give you 2 really great examples of why this is necessary. So there are a lot of people who in the municipality who touch the MS4 program. One example is your front desk employees, the people who are your frontline workers who answer the phones and take the people as they walk in. Those front desk staff people need to have at least a firm grasp on what MS4 is so that they can answer questions. If someone comes in with a concern about water, muddy water flowing down a creek, or white sudsy foamy water, or something that looks like paint spilled down an inlet, they need to know who that conversation needs to go to, and that this conversation is an MS4 issue, and specifically an illicit discharge detection and elimination issue. The other example I'll give you is with your boots on the ground staff, your enforcement folks, not necessarily law enforcement, but your codes enforcement, your public works. Having those individuals trained to be able to identify what an illicit discharge means, that while they're out doing their normal day-to-day routine tasks, they're also available to perform inspections and can identify an illicit discharge if they see it. So it's super important to make sure that you're coordinating not only for the other MCMs, but also for MCM 5. You've got to make sure that if you're not the person who's doing plan approvals and ushering those land development plans through the approval process, then you've got to be coordinating with the person who is to ensure that an operation and maintenance agreement is there, will be approved, will be recorded, and that you'll also get the as-built plans, and that you know when your MCM when your BMP is moving from MCM 4 to MCM 5. This it is a little cartoon. If you don't have a team, you're going to have to build one yourself. All right, and I'm going to get into CS Datum, and I'll burn through this for you guys because I want Latice to be able to talk. So this is CS Datum. This is a proprietary software designed by C.S. Davidson in an effort to cut down on the amount of paper that we dealt with as a company and with our clients, and also to have more information readily available at our fingertips. So CS Datum works really well with mobile devices, particularly Apple. Very, very easy to use with an Apple iPad in the field. And this is the main menu screen. We've got account information. Here are reports. For anybody who doesn't use CS Datum in the group, this is one of my favorite features. If we were to type in the city of York here in reports, we can pull up the report sort of outline that we have here in CS Datum. And all of this allows you to save documents within these folders relative to the MCM. Additionally, here in MCM 5 for post-construction stormwater management, BMP number 3, we have the option for you to pull up the inspections. Now, this is for permit year 2019 to 2020. So here are all the BMP inspections that Latice completed, and you can pull them up via PDF. So if you're out in the field doing an inspection now for one you did last year, you can pull this up and see the changes while you're in the field from last year to while you're there. The other important feature here is that you can search. You can set up a time frame, which makes it very easy when doing annual reports. You can also set up a quadrant. I know we don't have quadrants set up here for York City, but you can also divide your municipality and then set up to inspect a quadrant each year. And then this system will populate when your inspections are due. So CS Datum is the brainchild of Jordan Good here at CS Davidson. And let's see, where do I want to go here? I'm going to get out of reports and let's go into maps. And here we're in the city of York. Turn off our layer. We'll turn on the boundaries, right? So this is all pretty user friendly. And here, let's turn on the cities, let's turn on their BMPs. So we can see here, we have 148 BMPs showing. Latice, how many did you say you had?
About 123 locations. There are probably multiple on one location. Right.
And it's not uncommon for folks to have, maybe you've got 20 BMPs identified, but you really have 36. And it's not uncommon for folks to be continuously updating their MS4 program and just making it more complete each year that you administer it. So here we have all of the city's BMPs. And this is the, I can't remember the name. Is this Helen? Yeah, this is Helen Thaxton Charter School. So if we click on this BMP here, let's do this one maybe. Click here and we can go to view data, right? And the other thing this will do is if you say you're in a bigger municipality or maybe not as familiar, you can navigate. This button will pull up map viewer and then give you driving directions to your BMP. But let's pull up the data here. And this is the really cool part about how CS Datum was designed. So here it's super easy to enter BMPs, and I'll show everybody how to do that. But this right here is very important. So I said before, the PA BMP manual, chapter 6, goes into operation and maintenance. Well, in CS Datum, for every one of the BMPs that's here, the appropriate section from the PA BMP manual has been noted. And then all of these, let's go here, let's start a new inspection. And then all of the requirements for what you need to check have been auto-populated here. So what you can do is go in, and Latice will go into this, but while you're in the field with your iPad or phone, you can go in here, document the condition, and then start going through what the operation and maintenance criteria are, adding photos, identifying the condition, and putting in notes that you see. So let's quick try and add another, and again, I just want everybody to see how really intuitive and easy this is to use. So let's say there's another BMP locally nearby, and we're going to draw it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an aerial photo to this so that I can see what I'm doing easier by what's on the ground. Let's see, go back, BMP, yep, add. All right, so what I'm going to say is here is an underground, let's delete that and do a polygon. There we go, delete. Here we go. Sorry, guys. All right, polygon here. Underwater infiltration system for this parking lot. There. And so now we can get into the details. Type, subsurface infiltration, infiltration trench. Just pick this. And then we can go straight into inspections. And this will pull up all of the PA BMP manual operation and maintenance guides for this BMP. And then again, close, no, close, no. And then this is super easy to delete. If you made a mistake, oh, there's no BMP there. So super, super easy to use in the field and provides information at your fingertips. And I think that marks the end of my presentation. So I'll transfer it over to Latisse.
Thank you, everybody. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So our use of CS Datum, as Jessica has just shown, is very easy. I use an Apple iPad. I pretty much take it to use for illicit discharges, emergencies, as well as MCM5. I also use it for my outfall inspections. So I basically use it for everything I want to record to my annual report. CS Datum just really takes everything and puts it in that annual report where it needs to go. So I'm not having to kind of shove it in where it needs to go. It's done for me. I also use it for tracking the BMPs, as she had shown. It's on there as a polygon or point, depending on the BMP type. So I personally really like it. It's a good program to have. Next slide, please. Okay, so the inspections. So the operating and maintenance agreement is very important. For example, when I started in this position, we had about half of the O&M agreements for the total number of BMPs we had. So my first priority was to develop these O&M agreements for the properties we did not have and explain to folks, hey, you have a BMP on your property. We have to have a signed O&M agreement. This is why, this is when it should have been done. And I'd appreciate it if you could sign it and get it back to me. And of course, answer any questions they may have. Well, why do I have to do this? Well, I don't feel comfortable, and go into that and kind of things. So once we had the operation and maintenance agreements, we want to make sure that they get recorded with the deed, as Jessica had explained earlier. So the ones I had to make outside of the transition between MCM 4 and 5, where it should have been recorded with the deed, ours are not being recorded. So we would not have that leverage if the BMP property was sold to the new property owner. They may say, well, I didn't know about an O&M agreement. I didn't sign one. I don't have to do anything with this. And they would be right, because we did not have that recorded with the county recorder of deeds. So ultimately, it would be the city's responsibility to take over the operation and maintenance for that BMP. which is not a position you want to be in. So you want to make sure you get that recorded with the deed. It's just really, really important. So for monthly inspections, what I do, and there's some pictures later that will show what I'm talking about here. So I have an Excel spreadsheet with all of my BMPs on them. I have everything from the name, the location, the responsible party, their contact information, and how often they need to be inspected via the BMP manual. So every month I have everything broken down into months. So, and then I have another Excel sheet for January, February, March, April, May going forward. And whatever BMP is due that month, I would send an email or a regular letter to the BMP owner and say, hey, your snouts are due for inspection this month. Please return this inspection form to me by April 31st or the end of whatever the last day of the month is. Now, when I receive that, when I receive their completed inspection forms, I go back to my Excel monthly sheet and I kind of press, okay, I received it on this date and time. And if there was any comments or any repairs needed, I would note that as well. So that is their self-certification. Now, I also do my own inspections once every 4 years for each BMP. The city, we have broken down into quadrants. I actually have just a wall map of, the quadrants that we have, and I did mine from west to east instead of up and down. So every 4 years I do the inspections. I'll go out. Normally I try to go out when it's raining or shortly after, so I can make sure BMPs are draining on time, making sure there's no erosions after heavy rainfall. And then of course I use my iPad and CS Datum to do my BMP inspections there. And they're all like she showed you, they're already tucked into my annual report. And then if certifications are not received, I do follow up with the property owners and say, hey, what's going on? Is there something I can help you with if you're not understanding what I'm asking of you? We just kind of try to work that out. Yep, next slide, please. So here's an example of my April inspections. April and October are pretty heavy for me, especially for the ones that are due every month, twice a year, and 4 times a year. So as you can see on the far left-hand side, that's the BMP name and or address. The second column in is what kind of BMP it is. The third column is how often they should be inspected. And then the next column is when I receive their inspection report. So as you can see, some of them returned them to me, some of them have not. And I keep a record of those who do not. So if it's chronic that they don't turn one in every, for 6 months, they haven't turned in an inspection form, I'll reach out to them, or even 3 months. Hey, what's going on? Is there anything I can do to help? Questions? Or you're just not getting to them? I do have to remind you, these are required. And down there at the at the bottom, there's a remark. I only received one for the basin that was returned, when they actually have 2 different BMPs. Next slide, please. So here's May, significantly shorter. So these are for my all monthly. Snouts are usually monthly inspections. I haven't had any turned in yet, but it's only the 5th. They do have till May 31st to turn them in. But I just kind of wanted to show the difference between some months you're going to have a lot, some months you're not. And that was a little bit better there. Next slide, please. So here, I know it's a little hard to see, but that is our self-certification form. It's just something that I drew up of all the information I'm looking for when I want our private owners to inspect their BMPs. I do have it on letterhead. I didn't at first, but that was out of a recommendation of our solicitor to put it on our letterhead. So in the top, I have inspection time frame or month. So I have all the months listed there. I actually made this form a fillable form online. So for those who are at a desk can just select which ones or enter their information instead of printing it out and having to scan it in and then send it. So they're able to fill it out online and send it. For those that I do not have an email address for, I do just print this out and I send it snail mail, so they can just write in the month or the year. The BMP address is important information. I also want to know the BMP type. Sometimes they don't know what it is, but I always can go back to my point of contact Excel sheet and look. The date they inspected it, who inspected it, the condition, was it cleaned, yes or no, any repairs that are needed or were made, and any other comments. Next slide, please. And this is just a showing of the difference between the polygons and the points for our BMPs. I prefer polygons for basins, larger areas, stretched out areas, underground basins, things that have 4 points or more. If it's a point source, or I'm sorry, a point BMP, for example, flow guard downspouts or some kind of infiltration trench, or just something that I can contain into a point, I prefer points for those. So I just kind of wanted to show the difference between polygons and points. So the polygon, the city of York actually has that basin out in the industrial park. It's a pretty large polygon, and a point kind of doesn't do it any justice. And then we have points down here at the bottom for different BMPs. Next slide, please. And that's pretty much it. So we, Jessica and I, are able and willing to answer any questions that may be in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask us.
So
yep.
there is.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, here's our final slide, here's our contact information. And what we did do was put helpful links here. So here's a link to the PHE 13, the BMP manual, chapter 6 of the BMP manual, and DEP's low impact development resources.
Right, so we do have one question in the chat. It says, does the stormwater ordinance need to be updated with inspection requirements, timeframes, self-certification, etc.? Or is an update to the written stormwater management plan usually suffice for enforcement of procedures?
I can take that. My caveat is I'm not an attorney. I'm not a land use attorney, and I may write ordinances, but I don't do the legal review. So here's my professional opinion for what it's worth. I like to keep my ordinances as broad as is realistic, because you don't want to paint yourself into a corner. And as you can see from Letitia's spreadsheet, she's doing, and I just want to say, Letitia is, she's a full-time MS4 coordinator doing a really, really, really great job inspecting a whole ton of BMPs that York City has. So that's what works for York City. Some of you don't have that many BMPs. Do not stress yourself out thinking that you have to duplicate Letitia's system. That's just an example of how she's doing it. But that being said, you can see that a bunch of different BMPs have different inspection timeframes and criteria. I would not build those into your stormwater management ordinance. I think it is enough having it in your it's enough having it in your written plan, but then really the enforcement aspect of this, of the operation and maintenance, isn't through your ordinance, it's through the operation and maintenance agreement that was signed by the owner and the municipality and notarized and recorded. That's really your teeth and your kind of where you're going to hang your hat for getting your BMPs maintained.
Thank you. I just started working about 7 months ago, so I'm fairly new and just, you know, trying to just get insight on how people proceed forward and whatnot. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's a great question.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, Letitia, now it's on to our joke portion of the presentation.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. So Leticia, you had saw the resources that you have and then you use, but what kind of resources do you provide to the owner? I know you mentioned recording the plans and the agreements in the plat, but if you do have a new owner, what kind of resources do you provide to that owner for them to understand the BMP that they have just inherited and how it functions?
Yeah. So whenever I know that there's a new owner, I send them a letter stating my purpose for sending the letter. I'm notifying you that you have a BMP on your property, and I'll list what kind of BMP that is. I'll kind of list the responsibility of that person that I'm looking for, that it needs to be inspected every 4 times a year or 2 times a year, and after every 1-inch rainfall in 24-hour period, or whatever that may be. And then I'll let them know in the letter, I'll let them know in the letter that every month that their BMP inspection is due, they can expect a letter or email, whichever they prefer, with the blank inspection form. I'll go through all that, and I'll also cite the ordinances, say this is a requirement that has to be made, and this is why I'm sending you this information. Along with that, I send, of course, my business card. I also send a LD plan if I have it, land development plan. A lot of my land development plans, I'll go in and highlight with a highlighter just where their BMPs are on their property, so they can find them easily, because I know LD plans can get very confusing. So I'll highlight it so they can see right away, this is what you need to do, and this is how many times. And I'll also give them a sample of the form. This is very easy. This is just the stuff I need. I need a yes and no question. And I'll give them some ideas of what to look for. Okay, for the basin, you want to look for groundhog holes, you want to look for erosion, sinkholes, any trash or litter. It needs to be mowed so often if it's a grass basin, etc., etc. So I kind of give them a nice packet, depending on how many pages. I'll also include the O&M agreement that's signed. Whether it was recorded or not, I try to send it anyway, and say, okay, this is the agreement that was signed, and this is why I'm sending you this information. So it's a nice packet. Sometimes I'll send it in a larger envelope if it's not going to fit in a regular envelope. But I try to mail it to them. I provide my email address and just ask them if you have questions. Some of them will reach back out. I'm totally lost. Can you come out here and help me look at this thing? And I'll make an appointment to go out and help them. Okay, this is what this is. This is what you're looking for. And this is what you just need to write down on the form. And they're like, okay, I got it. So you want to help them out as much as you can. Give them as much information as you have, and be able to try to answer questions.
Okay. We have one more question in the chat. It says, most recorded plan O&M is not written for the homeowner and often is very crowded, small print, etc. Do you have significant requests for simplified O&M, and how do you deal with that?
What I would say is, feel free to go ahead and create your own operation and maintenance agreement. I think Philip, it sounds like what you're talking about is the O&M is actually written on the plan sheet as a note in one of the sections for probably on the, who knows where, construction notes. And what I would say is, I would create and have your municipal engineer and your municipal solicitor review an actual 8.5 by 11 document that is an agreement, and populate it with the information from Chapter 6 for the structural BMPs. There are any number of templates that you can find online. And in fact, I believe that the template ordinances also come with, in the appendix, an attachment that is a template stormwater management agreement. But feel free, create your own.
Okay, I think that's just about our time. Thank you again, Letice and Jessica. We appreciate you sharing your experiences with us. And I think now we'll remind again about the survey. You'll be asked to fill that out, I think, after each session, right, Adriana?
Well, Yeah, actually, at the end of the day, we're going to send all attendees and speakers a link, and that link will have questions about each one of the sessions that were attended for the day. But before we head back to the main session, I want to make sure that everybody knows to leave this session, go back to the agenda, and then pick the 10 a.m. session. You'll leave that one and then go back to the pick a breakout session. So you should only have one Teams meeting window open at a time. So I think there was some confusion that some were in one and then joined another. So it's best to leave this one, go back to the agenda, click on the 10 a.m. session. That's only a 5-minute session. Then you're going to leave that and then go back and then pick one of the concurrent breakout sessions. So, and again, we're here if you have any questions, but that would be the best practice to make sure that you get all the information you need. So I'm going to put the link to the agenda in the chat. And so click on that. You should be able to leave the session and then and let us know if you have any questions. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jessica and Latisse.
Yep,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.